Apple just quietly killed the dynamic island, well, most of it. The iPhone 18 Pro is bringing 7 upgrades this September, and honestly, a couple of these might actually change how you use your phone every single day. Let me walk you through all of them. So here's the deal. The iPhone 18 Pro is not getting rid of the dynamic island entirely, but for the first time since Apple introduced it, that pill-shaped cutout is actually changing size, and it's not a subtle trim. Reportedly, Apple has figured out how to move some Face ID components under the display, which, think about what that means. The hardware that used to need that big cutout can now partially hide behind the screen. The result, the dynamic island could shrink to a 13.5 millimeter width compared to the current 20.7 millimeters. That's roughly 35% smaller. For a phone you stare at hundreds of times a day, that's not nothing. That's a noticeably cleaner look every time you unlock. But the display isn't even what I'm most excited about. The camera upgrade this year is genuinely interesting. Rumor has it Apple is introducing a DSLR-like variable aperture to the iPhone 18 Pro Max and potentially the regular Pro's main camera too. This would let the phone adjust how much light enters the sensor depending on conditions and give users actual control over depth of field. Now, let me translate that. Right now, the main cameras on every iPhone from the 14 Pro through the 17 Pro have a fixed aperture of f1.78. The lens is always fully open. You have zero say in it. Variable aperture means you could dial that in yourself. Brighter shots in dim restaurants, creamier background blur in portraits, the kind of control that used to require carrying an actual camera. That's a meaningful leap for mobile photography, if Apple nails the execution. And keep that if in mind because I'll come back to it now, under the hood. The iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max are reportedly getting the A20 Pro, Apple's newest processor, built on a 2-nanometer process for the first time. Expect noticeable performance and efficiency gains. For context, the current A19 is on 3 nanometer. Jumping an entire node doesn't happen every year. Some analysts project up to 15% faster performance and 30% better efficiency than the A19. But here's the part that actually matters to you. Efficiency gains at the chip level compound with everything else Apple's doing this year. I'll explain why in a second. The A20 Pro is also expected to include the N2 networking chip, an upgrade over the N1 that debuted with the iPhone 17 lineup, promising better Wi-Fi power efficiency and performance. Now, connectivity. This one's sneaky important. Apple is reportedly keeping prices the same as last year's models, despite rising RAM costs and despite competitors like Samsung hiking prices on their newest flagships. They're doing it through cost management. Wait, I jumped ahead. I was saving pricing for the end. Let me rewind. The modem. Apple has been replacing Qualcomm's cellular modems with its own in-house chips. The C1 debuted in the iPhone 16e, the C1X came in the iPhone Air, and now the C2 is expected for the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max. Here's what's different this time. The C2 is said to be more capable than the C1 and C1X. It may feature millimeter wave 5G connectivity, something those earlier Apple modems didn't support. And Apple's C2 modem could add support for 5G satellite connectivity, potentially giving the iPhone 18 Pro full internet access over satellite when standard networks aren't available. Think about that for a second. Not just emergency SOS texts from the middle of nowhere, actual internet. If that pans out, this is one of those features you never need until the one time you desperately do. And if you're finding this useful, do me a favor, just tap subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. All right, back to it. Battery. The iPhone 18 Pro is rumored to pack around 5,200 milliamps. That's up from the iPhone 17 Pro Max's 5,088 milliamps. On paper, not a massive jump, but remember when I said efficiency gains compound? The new chip and modem are both expected to help with battery life, so the real-world improvement should be even greater than what those numbers suggest. A more efficient 2-nanometer processor pulling less power, a custom modem sipping less energy on 5G, and a bigger cell. Stack those together, and you're probably looking at a noticeably longer day. The kind of difference where you stop carrying a charger to dinner. Colors. Apple is continuing the iPhone 17 Pro's trend of bolder color options. This time, Cupertino has reportedly been testing brown, purple, and burgundy. These may not be the final choices, but expect at least one or two that feel genuinely fresh. The iPhone 17 Pro's two-tone rear design was polarizing. Apple reportedly plans to better blend the aluminum and glass areas for a more unified look, so the back might finally feel like one cohesive piece rather than two materials awkwardly sharing a phone. And finally, pricing. Rumors say Apple is keeping the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max at the same price as their predecessors, despite rising RAM costs and despite Samsung raising prices on its newest flagships. Cupertino is reportedly managing this through focused cost control. If they pull it off, the 18 Pro and Pro Max will stand out even more against the rising tide of flagship prices. Oh, and one more thing. The regular iPhone 18 and the more affordable iPhone 18e, those aren't expected until spring 2027. The Pro and Pro Max are coming this September. So if you're waiting for Apple's best, the wait is almost over. A smaller dynamic island, a camera that finally lets you control aperture like a real lens, a 2-nanometer chip, satellite 5G, and the same price tag. That's not a spec bump. That's the kind of year where people actually feel the upgrade. See you next one. Peace out.